Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the COVID-19 preparedness webinar series by the Max Institute of Healthcare Management at the Indian School of Business. I am Soumya Shashidhara, the Associate Director at the Institute and the host of the series. For those of you who are on our webinar for the first time, the Max Institute at ISB is an interdisciplinary specialist institute that generates insights and applies management thinking for creation of a better health system. This webinar, Idea to Market, Commercialization and Funding of HealthTech, is being held in partnership with TiE Chandigarh. TiE Chandigarh has been instrumental in creating a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem through learning, mentoring, and creation of professional networks in the region. We have with us Manisha Kumar, President of TiE Chandigarh and founder CEO of Racer Technologies with us. He is also the co-moderator on the session. Munish is an angel investor, ultra-marathoner, and an avid nature photographer. He's also a member of the ISB IKEA family network. Munish, welcome, and thank you for your partnership. As panel...
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for that.
That's okay. As panelists, we have Shailesh, Prithani, co-founder and CEO of Doxper.com. Doxper works at all points where paper meets pen in a hospital. They are set to digitize healthcare with minimal disruption. Shailesh heads strategy, finance, and business development and sets the overall direction and vision for Doxper. Shailesh, thank you for your time and participation. Bhavish Sood. Next, we have Bhavish Sood, general partner at Modular Capital, a deep tech fund. He also serves on the board of Medimetry, a full stack rural telemedicine company. He has formerly co-led digital health roadmap advisory at Access Healthcare on a Gates Foundation grants. Bhavish, thank you and look forward to hearing you at the session. Next, we have Manisha Kumar, who is the head of facility and general manager of Columbia Asia Hospital, Sarjapur Road in Bangalore, possibly the most digitized hospital in India at this point. She is part of the private hospital task force in Bangalore that is working with health authorities in their response to COVID-19 situation and advises many startups and VCs in their product development and also investing decisions. She's an alumnus of ISB PGP class of 2013. Always a pleasure to have our alumni with us. Manisha, welcome and thank you so much for your time. As for the format, Munish and I will speak to the panelists in the first half of the session. We have received some advanced questions, and we have tried to address quite a lot of that in the discussion itself. At the end, we will take questions from the participants. To start, I would like to start off the discussion with Shailesh about Doxper. A lot of innovative ideas and technology has been proposed to change the way care is delivered and managed. A lot of ideas have been attempted in moving hospitals to digitize medical records. In fact, it has proven that developing technology products is probably easier than dealing with human factors that enable adoption. At the beginning of the Doxper journey, how did you articulate your value proposition? Because now it appears very clear that you want to digitize without behavior change. So, what is it that drove this insight and therefore your technology selection and product development and a whole host of things that has brought Doxper to this point and clarity? Shailesh.
Sure. Thanks. Question, Soumya. Good noon, everybody, and really honored and humbled to be part of this panel. So, Doxper journey has been no short of what an entrepreneur's roller coaster ride would have been. We have seen a lot of highs and lows and kind of on a daily basis, and but things have stabilized a little. When we started Doxper, when we came up with that idea, me and my other two co-founders, Randeep and Pawan. very early.
Shailesh, can I suggest that you turn off the video? I think your audio is breaking up a little bit.
Audio is breaking up a little bit.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much.
Is this better? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Shailesh, you're fine. Soumya, you're on mute, please.
I'm so sorry for the internet. I hope this is better.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the journey with Doxper has been quite a roller coaster ride. When we started in 2015, late 2015, early 2016, we were very early days, right? And that was the time when health tech and companies in healthcare were new. Practo was just coming up. 1mg was just starting up, and people were only looking up to the likes of Flipkart and others, and thought everything is going to be very hunky dory. It's just like shoot to high valuations, you will be able to get to market fit very, very quickly, and then suddenly realize healthcare is very, very different than any other domain. It's very different for a variety of reasons, right? First of all, who are your customers? If your customers are general people and individuals, population, it's a different thing. But if your customers are doctors and hospitals, then you're dealing with a different thing altogether, right? Healthcare in India, unfortunately, and this is not only in healthcare, but in general in India, nobody wants to pay for anything. And that's where things get really complicated, and you have to really justify the value proposition. When we started, we said, hey, great, doctors, why don't you use our technology? You'll be able to record a lot of data and save a lot of data. And doctors were like, why do I need to do that? I mean, what's in it for me to even record the data and keep that data? What do I get out of it? Right? And then you suddenly realize that, hey, it's not what you really think is going to bring value. It has to be a value that the customer wants, and which is one of the biggest learning that anybody should get out of. And also to the fact that it's understanding, and honestly everyday understanding what your customer wants. It does not matter what you think, it does not matter what you want. All that matters is what customer wants. And the sooner that you understand this, the sooner that you realize it, the faster you'll be able to come up with the value proposition and products, and go to the market and get those customers. And that's where really the journey started, when we started really going deeper from the fact that what is it that our customers want. The value propositions appeared, we discussed, we built some more, and slowly started adding doctors. The other thing with healthcare is it needs a lot of trust building, unfortunately, right? Health is something that you just can't experiment with. And so is everybody who is in healthcare would want a little bit of trust building. Nobody would want to go to see a doctor who was just 1 day of experience, right? So it's always about trust building in healthcare, and trust building cannot be bought. It takes time. So any of the healthcare companies that you see, right, would have spent that much amount of time staying around, staying relevant, talking to their customers for them to uh, you know, uh, gain that trust. And of course, we talked about pricing and customers and where things are. And honestly, if you look at the state of healthcare, in India today, uh, we're talking about in metros and tier one cities, a consultation of 500 rupees. Well, you look at US, it's $500. There's no comparison, right? And when you look at 500 rupees, when you look at a lot of other things, the cost of healthcare, in that sense, very high, right? The real estate, the cost of quality, cost of maintaining tidiness in hospitals, the cost of providing support, cost of hardware, cost of technology, the MRI machines, and all those things, they cost money, but the consumers don't want to pay. And if you look at all these hospitals and setup, they are struggling. So how do you? And that's where you need to really focus on the value proposition in healthcare. Right. So healthcare, you need a very, very distinguished and differentiated value proposition. You need to understand, what the customers want. The third and the most important thing that a healthcare startup should do is build fast and fail fast. You do not have too much time. You will not have a luxury of a lot of revenue to show, at least to begin with. The investors are not going to trust you upfront. You cannot buy customers throwing money and hence it's a very different ball game. It's all about grit. It's all about surviving every day, and it's all about going out and proving and saying the same thing again and again on what value you bring. Now, what I've talked about are like really maybe depressing points. Now, here's the good part. The good part is where healthcare in India today is, it cannot go any lower. We cannot afford for it to go any lower than where we are. So if you're in healthcare and you can give it all what you have, you probably, healthcare is going to go only up. And if you can ride the wave, you can bring the difference, you have the product that it needs, you'll be able to really, really do good.
Thanks, Shailesh. I think it's just that much important to understand what the customers want. So is what I'm hearing. And then now I'll go over to Manisha, who is the buyer, the customer. That's the hat she wears on a day in and day out basis. Manisha, as the head of your hospital, you have been buying new tech, new applications regularly. What has been your tech selection approach? And then is it like you have a list of apps or needs that you are looking for a good solution, or do you evaluate good solutions that come to you and then see where they fit into your system? Two, what are the criteria that you would use while selecting your new technology actually for your hospital? Manisha, over to you. You're on mute, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I think, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, please.
So in the interest of being audible, I will probably turn off my cam for now and see how it goes. Yes, thanks a lot for the introduction. I hope I'm still audible. I'll go on.
Yes, Manisha, we can hear you.
Yes, so I'll just begin by saying that hospitals today, tertiary care hospitals, and as well as healthcare givers, which is doctors and clinical teams, are now quite open and forthcoming to technological enablements and using technology in hospitals, unlike what was the scenario, say, 5 to 10 years back when I started working with hospitals. In my hospital specifically, so we have a homegrown HIS, hospital information system, that links all the areas, the outpatient area, emergency room, inpatient area. It links the entire history of patient, including right from his or her OPD consultations, medicines prescribed, lab reports, ER visits, to the admission, line of treatment, discharge summary, and all of that. And all this is stored in EHR and is available to the doctor as well as the treating doctor as well as the patient. Now, this, of course, is homegrown, and we have ensured in my hospital at least 100% implementation of EHR in the sense in outpatients also our doctors write patient advice online, and they see a lot of value in this information because of course, it helps them in right clinical decision making. It also covers the entire medical piece for us because it flows a lot of waters. We have documentation with timestamps and so on. And more than anything, we see a lot of value for patients in terms of ease of access of their complete medical records. Having said that, we are a healthcare provider. The data and tech and analytics are not core to our business. We are often, trying to see how much more value can we add, how much more can we build on our existing system. And there's a lot of companies that approach us with very smart solutions. In terms of evaluating a tech solution implement in hospital, I think that is the key question that you asked, and I'll iterate a few points in what goes in the decision-making process, both from a management professional like myself as well as a clinician. So first and foremost, we obviously, like Shailesh also iterated, we look at the core value proposition. Now, does it add value directly to our business or our top line and volume? There are several companies that are doing work in analytics. There's a lot of patient aggregation models that companies have come up with. There are medical tourism aggregation companies and so on that add direct, footfalls and additional days with patients for us. Another way of looking at value addition is, and this is where I feel there is still a lot of scope of improvement across hospitals, is whether the solution helps in improving efficiency for us in the hospital. And there are smart solutions today, and a lot of tech companies have approached us. They worked previously with Max, they worked in Manisha, where they have given solutions that have helped us improve customer experience in terms of either touch screens for feedbacks, smart solution to reduce turnaround times. We all know, those who have been unfortunately admitted in hospitals, we know that how the discharge process is a long journey for any patient, and simply reducing that time frees up additional beds and increases capacity in the hospital to take in more patients, as well as is a good patient experience to be able to leave the hospital as fast as possible. And lastly, but importantly, another value addition piece which we are looking more and more towards now is on the side of patient safety and infection control. And since we are working in the pandemic situation right now, I think this is gaining more priority, and our lens is shifted a little bit towards this in this direction. There have been solutions for telemonitoring, tele-ICU that have been around, and there are companies who have built very smart solutions in this area over the last few years. But I think really adoption and focus on this, and renewed focus on this data from hospital side is coming now, where we are trying to cater to large number of patients. We are trying to keep our critical beds free as far as possible. We are trying to closely monitor, stats of patients, so that in order to catch any relapse and quickly take care of that situation. So in terms of value proposition, these are key metrics that we look at. Second, very important parameter that we look at is how easy is it to adopt the technology, right? So in terms of ease of adoption, I would say there are two viewpoints that we look at it from. The first is from a system point of view. So how easy is it for me to adopt that technology and integrate it with my hospital information system? So most of the large hospital chains in our country, as well as outside, in our country, if you talk about Apollo, we had in Max, Fortis, Costco, we have our homegrown hospital information systems that have a very well carved out and intricate clinical workflow that is integrated. So any tech solution or tech company to work inside a hospital ecosystem should have a flexible and scalable proposition platform that is able to integrate with our hospital information system and maintain and manage a seamless to and fro of data. Now, this not only requires, it's a little tedious effort, not only requires a lot of concerted time and effort, but also a lot of close, teamwork is needed to be done with the hospital teams, whether it is the IT team or the user team. There's a lot of user testing that is needed. And users typically would be the clinical teams more often than not who will use the solution. So a lot of close cohort working with the user teams, user testing, pilot testing, and development, ranging from a period of few weeks to few months if needed, in order to really customize and tailor make the solution suiting the particular hospital needs or the particular system that the hospital uses. There's also an angle of patient data safety here, and I'll touch upon that as well, because I think there's a lot of smart HealthTech companies that have come in, but this always is a little bit of a question mark. Of course, there are NDAs and non-disclosure agreements that we may sign, but what we really try to look for is how strong is the data security mechanism that the HealthTech company uses. How many of them really get third-party audits done, for example, to ensure that to validate data security.
I think it's very important for a startup to have a value proposition which is either clinical, non-clinical, top line impacting, bottom line, and ease of use, and of course the safety issues and things like that that you have been talking. That we will talk about that a little more in detail, and then I just want to go to understand what has been the sentiment of you've been looking at healthcare as one of your focus. So in the recent sentiment in the investment world, given that the past 2-3 months has been quite disruptive for the industry? Do you see a lot more ideas being pitched? Do you see a lot more interest and funding being available since digital behavior seems to be becoming almost a norm? So, Bhavish, it will be good to hear your thoughts around those things. Bhavish, you will have to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Soumya. If you look at general spending in healthcare, as a either as a percentage of GDP, it's very low. Even if you look at the VC side of the risk capital being available to healthcare or health tech in general, has been very low, right? I mean, almost 97% of the money has been actually spent on infrastructure, right? Which means hospital beds, hospital real estate, those kind of things, right? There's hardly any money available. But I think in the last 3 months, there are two things which we are seeing. One, insurance and pharma-led push on health tech is becoming very common, right? So one of the things which we're seeing is pharma companies are saying, that our medical reps are giving us feedback that the doctors who are doing primary general care, they are basically sitting redundant and they're actually fearing a substantial loss of revenue because, let's face it, if you are a patient and let's say you have the flu, you're not going to wait half an hour in a doctor's clinic, don't know what all else you will get from there, right? So I think there's a fundamental change in behavior that is happening. So a lot of pharma companies are actually, one of the things which we're seeing, pharma companies are buying a lot of health tech, to sell or basically just give it to the doctors. That's one thing. The second thing we're seeing is a lot of insurance-led models coming up, right? Whether it is on healthcare mutuals, which is bottom of the pyramid, or small COVID type parametric insurance policies. Things are seeing a lot of resurgence.
Thank you so much, Bhavish. Now I think Manish Jawahar himself is an angel investor, and I'd now hand over the session to Manish so that he can talk money, so to speak, about what it takes for funders to be interested in a startup and what are the evaluation criteria. Manish, over to you, please. Manish, can you hear us?
Thank you, Soumya.
Manish, can you
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. And I'll kick off again. I have a bunch of questions for the panelists, and I have a couple of general ones as well.
Munish, I think it'll be better if you go off video because your voice is kind of breaking. Munish?
Hello? Yeah.
Yes.
Is it better? Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. Apologies for the inconvenience. I'll kick off with Manisha first. I know, Manisha, Soumya basically reached out and asked you, how do you evaluate a solution? But the other question I had also was, it's really hard for healthcare startups, to break into this industry since you represent a major customer segment. So why is it so hard still for startups to kind of break into this industry?
Okay, thanks, Manish. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Manisha, we can hear you.
Okay. So I think, yes, in my answer to Soumya, I did talk about, value proposition and IT integration and data security. But I think the other really big piece is change management that is involved in any, tech enablement or rolling out any tech implementation in a hospital system. More often than not, it is the clinical teams that will be, leading the implementation, will be the key users. And in terms of clinicians and clinical teams, the learning curve ideally for any technology to be adapted by them has to be as small as possible. The design of the solution should be very intuitive, and it should be, it should communicate to the user in such a way that he or she should be able to understand what is the value add. For example, any solution that clearly saves time for a clinician, that he spends in rounds in inpatient area, or time he spends in OPD consultation, or the time nurse spends in doing duplicate work. If there's any solution that cuts that out and removes that, then the buy-in from the clinician side or the clinical user side inside the hospital is much higher. Of course, there is management direction and nudge which can be given from the top in implementations, and we do that. But beyond a point, it tends to alienate teams and users. So the best way of really getting implementation, getting buy-in from the hospital, is creating a solution very conducive for use for clinical teams, having a small learning curve, and getting a buy-in from their side and having them to champion it. So this is in terms of adoption and implementation. And second part to it is also financial viability, because as healthcare providers as well as hospitals, we're all looking at our bottom line as well. And numbers have not been very great in the last few months, and for any of us. And the return on investment piece is important for us as well. Now, different organizations have a different way of looking at this depending on what is the long-term strategy, mission, and vision. And if I talk of large hospital chains like us, we might have a longer view of, say, 3 to 5 years, a more strategic view of assessing ROI. While smaller chains or single specialty hospitals or the primary secondary care ones might look at a revenue realization within a 12-month span. So likewise, the way of monetizing any solution also has to be customized as per the organization or the healthcare provider who's going to use it. In terms of large hospitals, they might agree to the really good. They might agree to invest towards capital expenditure as well as run on a subscription model. Whereas in terms of smaller or single specialty hospitals, they might work more on a transaction cost model, where there is a transaction cost per transaction. There's a cost that is passed to their end user or their end customer, which usually tends to be a patient, and this really becomes a B2B2C kind of a model. And in these models, then the design of the solution has to be intuitive for the patient as well, for him or her to see the value add and to be convinced to pay like an extra fee, a convenience fee. It has to be a very intuitive, transparent design that sends a clear message to the end user. I'll give a very small example, but from a hospital environment, I cannot give so much from a clinic environment, but in a hospital environment, this is a live example. If there is a nurse that's flipping through pages after pages, trying to find, say, patient's vital information, the patient on the other end of the table would not, mind waiting a couple of minutes. But if she's doing the same thing on a tab or an iPad or a laptop, then the patient would be irked and would it would raise some eyebrows, and he would question, if you're using technology, why must I be browsing through something else? So I think in a B2B2C model, if it is a transaction-based monetization, really meeting the user expectations is also important, and health tech companies have to keep that in mind.
Very interesting perspective. Thank you very much. Shailesh, I had one, and this is pretty much what every startup kind of goes through, even after you have kind of identified your customer, healthcare startups face numerous challenges. No one really wants to pay. Manisha briefly touched upon this also. Consumers certainly don't want to pay out of their pocket. And providers are also dealing with, shrinking reimbursements, which limit the amount of money they want to part with. So pricing the product basically becomes a very critical part. You have to focus on your unit economics. You have to price the product. So you guys have been doing this for long. So I wanted your thoughts on this. How did you guys kind of come upon this? How did you kind of come upon a pricing model, and how did you stabilize your unit economics?
So thanks, Manish. A very touchy topic. something else. I was at IIT Bombay and we were talking in Sign. I was talking about entrepreneurship and a few things and discussed about my technology, pen and paper, and why that. Somebody asked me, as in, you saying that you guys are the first ones to have come up with something like this, and envisioned the solution for healthcare, and not even a company in the US or otherwhere, elsewhere in the world has kind of thought it through this way. Uh, how is that even possible, right? So the answer is very simple. The answer is it is not US problem, so they will not find solution to the problem that they don't have. This is our problem, and we need to find solution for our problem. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when we started thinking about DocSpur and putting the solution together, we could have very well gone and put together another application, an HIS or an EMR or good leaking, good UI UX. But that's not what our country needs. Right? Our challenges are very different. Our challenges are 2 minutes consultation time. Our challenges are doctor to patient ratio. Our challenges are the cost, the ROI, and how do you go around all that? Right. And Manisha actually touched on a lot of these things very, very clearly, right? Change management, learning, data security, value proposition, which is very important, right? Integration with the existing systems so the data flows and they're not isolated in various silos. And of course, the ROI, right? And so for see, if you're able to fit all the customer problems, or at least 80%, 90%, see, you can never solve 100% of the problems. But if you're able to come up with a value proposition and the product that actually touches and solves all these things, right? Understand the customer to the core, right? We do an amazing amount of market research. We talk to our customers, we talk to our potential customers, we talk to a lot of hospitals. We are in conversation with almost over 700 hospitals at this point in time at various stages of sales closure, and we're already serving 40 of the largest hospitals in the country, right? And all these hospitals, we have actually gone and demonstrated all these points around change management, around learning, around security, getting the external audits done. We've integrated with each and every hospital's HIS system, right? So we have actually built our tech in a fashion which is very, very scalable, which is very seamless, which can sit on top of any product or anything. And when you do that, you can ask for a justified price, not otherwise. See, the customer there is not going to pay you for something that is not worth. When you go buy clothes, you don't pay for whatever the customer or the shop wants. It is same everywhere. The customer has to feel the value is right, and then you can go and charge whatever you want. So to even come to unit economics, I mean, fine, you can go and look at your cost lines, you can do whatever you want to do, but it's the customer that determines the price. It's the market that determines what they're willing to pay for the solution. At times you have to let go as well, right? Because you also want to ensure that you standardize your pricing, you give them the same value proposition. uh, but and one thing important is while you understand the value proposition, you understand all the pain points, you try and address all those. You go with the pricing that's justified. uh, but sorry, I lost my train of thought. But the important thing is to to let the customer know in mathematical terms how they're benefiting, right? Go with all the go with all the all your math done. Understand what their cost lines are, what the industry cost lines are, and do not stop experimenting. Right? We still do experiments on our pricing, price points. Wherever we have the luxury of, wherever there are new use cases, wherever we understand that we can do it safely without affecting some of the other existing customers on a different fashion. Right? There is no right or wrong way. And whatever you ask for, or you'll only get whatever you ask for. Right? What you don't ask for, you'll never get. So don't mind, going out, being bold, asking for, whatever you think it's worth. The customer may feel that, it's not worth it, and I don't even want to talk to you because of such a high proposition. Maybe a value learned, right? Maybe a lesson learned. Take that data point, innovate, improve on that data point. Go and figure out, okay, if this is the kind of customer where I believe I bring so much value, the customer does not think that there's enough value. Am I missing something? Right? If I'm not missing something, then what is it? That there has to be something wrong. There has to be something wrong in the process. There has to be something wrong in the way that we send the proposal. There has to be something wrong in the whole process. So you go and fix that. You have to be at it, at least in healthcare, for a very, very long duration. The other thing is the customer acquisition and all this. I'll just quickly just take another 30 seconds and talk about something very important in healthcare. So I was talking to one of my very close friends who works with a very large digital payments company. And, the idea is if I can give discounts on cell phones, right? I can give discounts from my own pocket. And somebody will go and buy a cell phone even if the person does not want it. But will you get a heart surgery done if I say 50% off? You will not. Will you go to a doctor and just see the doctor because I'm giving you 50% cash back? No. You cannot buy customers by throwing money in healthcare. If you do that, it's never going to win the battle for you. Healthcare is extremely different. Healthcare is not the consumer play. Healthcare, you're dealing with the health of people. Very conscious of whatever you're doing. Realities around things will.
Munish, over to you, please.
Thank you, Soumya. I had a very interesting feedback, Shailesh. I had a couple of follow-up questions, but I'm going to hold back for now. I'll probably get back to them in the next round. Bhavish, since you've been doing this for a very long time, and nowadays, especially with the COVID situation, and I've been reading up basically over the past 10 years, investors have been betting very big on technology-focused healthcare startups. But the startup culture is always not a great fit for the highly regulated, healthcare industry. And where hype can only get you so far. We all heard about the Theranos case, lots of such examples as well. So what are particularly the 5 things that you as an investor look for in a healthcare startup? 5 points that come to your mind immediately. Bhavish, you're on mute right now. Bhavish, you're on mute.
Sorry. So I think both Manisha and Shailesh have kind of referred to it. So I think I'll tell you what my 4 or 5 top learnings have been after seeing maybe 100 odd healthcare startups. One, it's a very patient game. It's patient. Even VCs who have a 7 to 8 year horizon, for them also it is not enough, as a time span. So that is one. The second thing which Shailesh kind of referred to, you can't throw money to buy customers in the healthcare side. The unit economics doesn't work unless you have some sort of a pharma or an insurance, healthcare insurance kind of a blessing. The wallet share model in healthcare doesn't work, which works in e-commerce and some of the other industries. The third thing I'll say is very hard to make money in healthcare software. I would even go out on a limb and say it's almost impossible to do that. You have to do some sort of clinical services in order to make money in healthcare. And, just as a follow on to that, if you heard what Manisha said, they've actually gone and built out their own EHR and HIS system. So what are the chances that they will actually go to an Indian HIS provider or an Indian EMR company to actually buy that? The answer is no. Why? Because unlike other SaaS softwares, the workflow, the clinical protocols they have are going to be very different. And, they vary hospital to hospital, they vary segment to segment. So it's going to be very hard for healthcare software companies to make money. And the last thing I want to say, is, if you look at, we don't have one segment, right? I mean, we have multiple segments of, patients, people who are not able to pay even 10 rupees and are dependent on the Indian tertiary system, those that can give, 1,000 to 2,000 rupee per consultation. So, there's no one size fits all, right? So things have to be done partly subsidized by insurance. And I think the other thing is that, the only model that works is social spending on the healthcare, which Europe has kind of proven. In spite of all the brickbats their system gets, I think that's the only way to sustain healthcare funding and spending.
Thanks. So you went out on a limb and said it's very hard to make money of healthcare startups. So why do people keep investing? You know, it's been growing and growing and growing for the past 10 years. It showed some. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think healthcare software. You know, it's very hard to make healthcare software.
Cool. Okay. So I had a question. This is basically aimed both at Manisha and Shailesh again. You know, tech is known for innovation, and many startups become famous for completely reconstructing and reconceptualizing existing operational models. But disruption and experimentation don't go well in healthcare. You know, the issue is that innovative solutions often don't fit into existing workflows, and they may be great ideas, but bringing them into real life use cases is very hard. So startups need to kind of focus on digital solutions that can fit into the existing provider workflows. And so what are your thoughts on that? I know DocSpur is doing exactly that. So what are your thoughts, and how does one kind of proceed in that direction?
Okay, probably I'll go first. Yeah, so you said rightly, and while I was answering Soumya in the beginning, I touched upon this as well, that it is important for any health tech, especially software, health tech software solutions and health tech solutions that have to work inside the ecosystem of the hospital to be customized, to be scalable, flexible, and to be customizable with the HIS that we have. And they need to work around we have very intricate clinical workflows that are configured in our systems, and they need to work around and integrate with them. There has to be seamless flow of data. I wouldn't say that it is impossible. Just to give you examples without naming names, but we work with certain health tech companies who have done this. Just to give two examples, we work with a company that has so we have teleradiology in our hospital. We have essentially a hub and spoke model where one of our centers reports in the night time for other centers. We also in-source some of the work from standalone clinics and med centers and do reporting for them as well. So it is a very scalable model, and it optimizes, the number of radiologists and clinical manpower that we need. It gives instant reporting, efficacy of reporting, and so on. Now here we work with a health tech provider that helped us migrate our PAC system. PAC system is what pushes images for radiology. They helped us migrate it to a cloud-based PAC system, and they were able to work very effectively with our existing, in-house PAC system with our HIS. But it took time. They spent about 7 to 8 months of time working with our team, integrating, working with our radiologists, our IT backend team, users, which are the clinicians, even radiographers, understanding how the workflow has to happen, also external partners who do insourcing from, and building capabilities at all the touchpoints, so all the spokes essentially of this hub and spoke model. So it is time consuming, time intensive, but if it works well, it's great, because that is the only way, both the other speakers, Shailesh and Bhavish, spoke about monetization. If one has to make money off an integrated solution like this, you have to wait it out and go through this journey. And there's also a user testing, there's a pilot testing, there's a lot of hidden trials and test runs that need to be done. And it's quite likely that hospitals in the development phase may not pay the health tech companies, because we're not sure as well. I've had bad experience in the past where we started to work with two health tech companies. One of them folded before we could reach the final solution stage. So providers and hospitals are apprehensive as well, which is why financial handshake takes a little bit longer. Only after a complete proof of concept is there. Another example that I can give is we work with we're a Malaysian headquartered organization, a group of hospitals, and we work with a company based in Malaysia. It's actually an American company, but pretty much based in Malaysia and India. And they helped build an app, a patient experience portal for us, which is built on top of our HIS. So this is an app downloadable on the mobile, and it syncs well with our HIS, where the patients can book appointments, they can pay for appointments, view their lab results, investigations, and all of that. So the entire outpatient piece moves to this app. Again, this has been an intensive journey, a very long journey. A lot of burden of troubleshooting, of maintenance, everything is taken care of by the health tech company even today. So that's kind of part of our agreement. And this is a transaction-based model, which I touched upon a while back. We This is not a subscription or a capital intensive model for us from a payment point of view. So we look at a per user per annum kind of fee which moves to the health tech company. But of course, the volumes and the scalability is such that we are looking at thousands, probably lakhs of patients. So it makes sense in the end. So while as a health tech company, if I'm on their side, I may not make money in the first year, the second year, but it is so tightly wrapped with my HIS and with my everyday working in the hospital that it is ultimately going to make money for the health tech company over a 2 or 3 year long period of time. So going by the second example, I think in some cases you just have to wait it out to be able to realize money versus the time, effort, and money that you have put in as a health tech company. But these are instances where it has worked for us working with external companies, and they made it work as well. They made it out in terms of effort or in terms of realizing money, but they've been able to work that system. Passed on to Shailesh now.
Thanks, Manisha. I think points very good. And after this conversation, that we've been having, looks like we're entirely aligned, right? But let me get to this, right? The healthcare ecosystem in India is very, very delicately balanced, right? There are so many stakeholders, right? The hospitals, the providers, the doctors, the patients, the investors in the hospitals, the government, right? The laws, the regulations. It's a highly, highly regulated. And all the stakeholders have their interests, not really in the same direction. Right? We can spend a lot of time debating and talking about this, but we all understand that there are interests which are not really into one centralized fashion, right? A doctor would want in a different fashion. His or her interests are different. The hospital management's interests are different. The investors in the hospitals have different interests. The government is looking at a totally different way, while patient is somewhere hoping to be in the center of all this, but probably finding it outside, right? So you have to be very clear of what you're doing, right? You have to ensure that you understand this delicate or this balance, the way this is all held together very, very delicately, very clearly. And if you don't do that, you'll end up not managing one important piece, and that can derail the whole thing. First, the second thing is, because there's so many stakeholders, so many problems, and so many things that you want to solve with tech, that's another big mistake one would do, right? You don't have to go and do everything. You cannot do everything. Right? A lot of people come and ask us, hey, you're doing so many prescriptions, we're doing 600,000 prescriptions a month, you can actually start delivering medicines, right? I said, but that is not what we do. Well, so you have to be very, very sure of what you want to do, where you're bringing value, and be really the best at it. Because unless you're there, you're not going to be able to differentiate yourselves from anybody else. Right? So pick your battle. So when we started, right, our thoughts, our understanding, our product that we envisaged, when we started to where we are today, is upside down. The vision is not. Vision stays the same, has rock steady been the same. So it's very important that you have your vision, but be experimental, be understanding, and pick your battles, pick your thoughts, understand what you want to do. You may have to let go of some revenue, you may have to let go of some customers. We're serving over 3,500 doctors. The amount of feedback we get around feature requests are enormous, right? They're just enormous, right? People would ask for whatever whims and fancies they can think of, right? Maybe 5 doctors out of 3,000 would want to use such feature. I cannot build that feature for 5 doctors, right? So as a tech company, as a product company, one has to be very, very sure of what they want to deliver, how they want to deliver. Do they understand the value proposition, right? You have to augment, you have to believe in yourself, you have to keep delivering, right? And so the second thing is, it's a lot of work and effort on the company side, right? And for any entrepreneur, for anybody who's running the company, there are tons of things that they go through, right? You have to meet your customers' expectations, you have to meet your investors' expectations, you have to meet your employees' expectations, you have to meet your own expectations, right? It's just a crushing thing. And on top of that, you still have to deliver to your to ensure that the company survives. And that's where the other important thing that people do miss is partnering. You cannot do every time everything by yourself. And healthcare, as I said, needs a lot of time, needs a lot of trust building. So you may not, I mean, you being a startup which is 1 year old, may not be able to go and get that 5 minutes with your customer, with a big customer right away. Partner with other companies where you see synergies, right? Through them, go and meet your customers, potential customers. Have value enough for the customer and the partner, because that's the only way you'll be able to scale fast. Otherwise, fine, you can have a company, you can have a product, you can keep growing at a snail pace. That's not what investors would want. So the whole ecosystem is so delicately balanced in especially healthcare, right? Because you don't have a lot of leverage around a lot of these things like us other industries and consumer and some other tech spaces have, right? And if you do a lot of tech, you lose doctors, right? If you don't do a lot of tech, you do a lot of heavy lifting. It's not scalable. So it's a very, very delicate balance. So one has to be very sure of what they're getting into. One has to be very, very patient. One needs to have the vision right, the alignment right, understanding what to deliver, and it does not come on day one, right? We were lucky to have had our time and chances and opportunity to fail, and fail often. But good, we were able to come through that phase, build steady customer base, build a large moat of doctors and customers, and then build on top of it. Not a lot of players get that opportunity, but again, it also comes with hard work and a bit of luck. So one last thing that I'll add to, and this is for everybody in general across industry and in startup ecosystem. First thing is, it'll the rule of 3x, the rule of 3 times, right? It'll take you 3 times as much time to reach your goal. It'll take you 3 times more effort to reach your goal, and it'll reach you 3 times more money to reach your goal than your budget in all these 3 departments. It is going to be time consuming and effort. The second thing, ideas are available a dime a dozen. It's all about execution. So do not fear discussing your ideas, projects, thoughts with the stakeholders in the industry. Find somebody who can give you the right feedback. Don't talk to your family members, because they're always going to say yes, yes, yes. And go and execution is all about grit. There's only one word to it: grit. GRIT. Be at it. You have to really believe you can do it and deliver. It'll need nothing less than grit to come out winning on the other side. So those were a few things that I want.
Thanks, Manisha and Shailesh. Since we're kind of running out of time, Soumya, I'm going to hand it back to you. You can pick it up from.
Thanks so much, Munish. Everyone. I just want to take a few participant questions, because we are getting a lot here. So very interesting questions. Some of them have already been answered through some of the through the discussion, and some probably interesting for a larger audience. So I'm just going to come with little bit of this is directed to Bhavish. So there is Arushi Khurana who wants to know if there are a particular preference of technology or an approach that VCs prefer. Is there something that VCs don't like investing or anything? Is there like a do's and don'ts that has already evolved at this point so that the 101 mistakes are not again made by some of the startups? Bhavish, over to you, please.
Yeah. So I think there are two things that come to my mind. One of the things which I've always said, if you're doing if you're doing a health tech software and you don't have a clinical co-founder, that's a very big red flag for me. Okay. This domain is not like retail where you can work on it as a teller for some time and think of a solution and build a prototype. Healthcare requires deep clinical expertise, right? So I think a clinical co-founder is a must. And I think less than 1% of the decks and pitches we hear actually have a clinical co-founder. They all have clinical advisors, and these are very high-flying doctors who probably don't even have time to see their own patients. Forget advising a startup. So that's one. The second thing which I recommend everybody is to think about a unit economics model. Like Shailesh mentioned, healthcare is a long gestation period kind of a business. So I think most companies underestimate how much money they would need. And let's take a look at my portfolio, right? I mean, I have a clinical services company that is almost pre-revenue. They have very little revenue for the last almost 2 years. I have a medical devices company, which is very cutting edge. They have raised more than $2 million, but are also pretty much pre-revenue, right? So it takes a lot of patience compared to, other sectors. The same amount of money and time spent by a VC in any startup would probably be, if I did a startup now in, let's say, consumer, in 2 years, you'll probably be hitting a series B or C there, right? So which means 2 to 3 times of the valuation compared to what I funded it. That's why, healthcare is not very interesting. And I think I'm hoping that some of the old, operators like Manisha and Shailesh, would start venture funds, with their deep knowledge of healthcare at some point.
Thanks, Bhavish. I would like to direct the next question to Shailesh. This is about, well, you did talk about doing it fast and kind of failing fast, but a follow-up question was, how when a startup creates a minimum viable product, how much do they spec it and how much detailing do they go to? Do they go all the way and do the compliance required features, or I mean, just a sense about what is good enough to go to the market and test it?
Compliance is something that you can't mess around. So my suggestion is, if you can't deal with it, don't go for it. Right? So the compliance has to be baseline. I mean, we cannot be unethical and be building larger business. I mean, you'll not see any large company that has stood and been around and been seen test of time have been unethical, or at least in the early stages, let's say, right? And so. Honestly, times are such that whether we like it or not, and before you'd have even committed a mistake, you'll be on the other end of the media trial and other side, and then you'll not see the next day. So, compliance is something that you cannot be not dealing with. Again, there are ways of experimenting, right? If you're not really compliant, you want to ensure that you don't touch those parts insensitive. You don't do the testing at a large scale. You go and at least get the initial customer feedback or the user behavior feedback or something on test patients, right? Something can be on anything else. We do that. In terms of building the product, building the features, what do you need to build? How do you get it up? It comes with a little bit of learning, to be very honest. Learning, first of all, understanding the entire healthcare industry, what the customers want, how things are delicately balanced. The second thing is follow a way of quantifying everything if you can, right? Why are you building a certain feature? What does it do to the product, to your revenue, your numbers? Somewhere it has to make sense. Otherwise, why will you build a product or a feature? right? If it adds to additional revenue, if it adds to scaling faster, if it adds to getting certain number of, reducing your cost of acquisition, what it is, can you try and quantify it? Can you try and put some thoughts around, why you're doing it versus X, Y, Z, or 10 other features? And, guys, don't be afraid of Excel sheets. We always try and get on the other side that why do we need to get it, and it suddenly makes sense. But no, it's important to put your thoughts down on paper and document it, because when you do that is when you start thinking it through. When you're just putting everything, building your castle, in air, you will miss the details, and that's where the devil is. So, spend time documenting, thinking through, put that on Excel sheet, some numbers, some thoughts. That'll give you so much clarity about the whole process, about the whole product, about the whole customer expectations you'd have never even imagined. Do that, spend that time. Right, entrepreneurship is not easy. And I am probably one who can say I've spent, I've seen both sides very well, being in corporate for 10 years versus now running my startup for last 5 years. It's 10 times, 100 times as hard. Right. So if you really want to go and do it, ensure that you do it the right way. Otherwise, you'll not come out winning.
So this is a thank you so much, Shailesh. And my last question to Manisha. So I think organizational sustainability is going to be quite a challenge in the near term, in the next few months, right? So I mean, when can we expect purchasing decisions to happen going forward? Is there like a trend, and what should be some of the points startups or new technologies should be aware of as to when is a good time to approach customers?
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Soumya. I think we are talking about the current COVID situation. As I understand this question, I wish I had the answer as to when it will end. All of us are apprehensive. We don't have the correct answer to that. But I think what we are looking at now, and from the provider side, the kind of technology. First of all, we are more open to digital technologies and reaching out to patients using tech now than ever before. We are using a lot of telemedicine applications. We are ourselves in-house. We are doing teleconsultations. We are doing video consultations with our patients because we've got to maintain continuity of care. A lot of our patients come from different cities, and this is true for any large hospital. Patients traverse cities, they come from different states, different countries. We have a huge chunk of business that comes from other countries as part of medical tourism. And it is important to keep in touch in terms of business continuity, also to keep in touch with all these patients. So we are really focusing on telemedicine right now, video consultations, home sample connection, home physiotherapy, all of these. I won't say it is a new norm because I really can't say how long it will last, but this is what is on now. And if it works, this will definitely continue to be a parallel medium of being connected to patients going forward as well, because it saves a lot of cost of travel. It saves cost of infrastructure for me. I look at my OPD utilizations. If a consultant can sit at home and consult the same patient using an app and doesn't require space in my facility, then why not? I can cater to more and more patients. So if this works, and this is not something we were so prone to earlier, if it works, this could continue on the side as well whenever things get back to normal. But I think as of now, we are all in terms of hospitals, and various states are responding differently to the situation. But in terms of hospitals, we're all trying to work with as safe protocols as possible and cater to all the services to patients. So in terms of really buying and purchase, there's a lot of technological enablements that we're looking from patient safety and infection control point of view inside the hospital as well. I know some of my colleagues have been in discussions about buying robots that can help in taking vitals of patients, that can go pick up biomedical waste and cleaning inside rooms of patients with infectious diseases, isolation rooms of patients with infectious diseases. So there's a whole new set of technological enablements that we are looking at right now to meet the current situation. And I think healthcare provider space as such has to go on. We really can't hold on and carry on with a high-risk. Work from home doesn't exist for us. We go to work every day. All our doctors do as well. And patients also at some point are going to, they've already started coming back to hospitals, even for elective and planned surgeries as well. So I think in terms of purchase and engaging with external vendors and partners, work is going to go on. And there are new areas of technology where hospitals will continue to explore to work more and more to keep engaged with patients. So now is actually a better time for startups who are already in that space. And I've seen a couple of startups who have not been in the space, but now have quickly come up with telemedicine solutions and have pitched back to me. They were pitching some other solution or working with us on another front. And now they've come up with a telemedicine solution, video consultation solution and pitched to us. So it's a time for quick innovation, seeing how you can work in this situation and add value and plug the gaps that exist right now. And really, continuity of business is all about getting into the provider network. If as a hospital I have comfort level working with a certain provider, I trust their development, I trust their team, their inside sales team or the coordination from their end with my team, I would be more open to engaging with them on more and more projects. So I think this is a time to really innovate and think of ideas more specific and more in context to the current situation and engage with hospitals on that.
Thank you so much, everyone. In the interest of time, we should close the session. Thank you, Shailesh. Thank you, Bhavish. Thank you, Manisha, and my co-moderator, Muni, for this session. I think having a very focused vision, working with customers, failing fast, and building trust with your entire ecosystem is that much important for startups. And then it's just going to be a long haul for them at this point. If they should look at technologies that are going to be very relevant in the near term, and then build on their existing experience and experiment. Thank you so much for your time, and participants, thank you for your participation. Please stay safe and stay connected with us. Please follow us on LinkedIn to kind of get updates about all the research-led insights that we put up and all the learning sessions that we do. We put up the information on our LinkedIn page, Healthcare at ISB. Do follow us and stay connected. And thank you so much from Indian School of Business and TiE Chandigarh to the panelists and also to all the participants. Bye-bye and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.